Hello, welcome back to Mrs. Torres' YouTube channel. So yesterday we learned how to graph square roots. Today what we're going to do is look at square roots and try and write the equation for them. So we're kind of doing the opposite of what we did yesterday. You can kind of think of this like graphing lines. It's very similar. So when you're graphing lines, one of the ways that you can graph them is using slope-intercept form. So slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. M is your slope, b is your y-intercept. So it would look like something like y equals 3x minus 4, something like that. When you're graphing square root functions, like this one, our general form of our equation is y equals a times the square root of x minus h, and then on the outside of our square root plus k. hk is our starting point. So that's where our graph starts. So when we're graphing lines, that's kind of like our B. We can look at the graph and figure out what our B is. Here we can look at our graph and figure out where it starts. In this case, our graph starts right there. The coordinates of this point is 2, 0. So that means our H is 2, our K is 0. So let's plug that into our equation. So y equals a, we still don't know what a is yet, so we're going to leave that as a, times the square root of x minus h. Our h is 2, so minus 2 plus k, which is 0. Now when we write our final equation, it's just going to have a y and an x in it, no other variables. So we've got to figure out what this a is. So this is kind of like when you're graphing linear equations, when you knew what the slope was. So say we use our slope formula to figure out our slope was 3, but we didn't know what b was. You used a point on the line to plug in for x and y to solve for b. So we can do that exact same thing here. Find a point on our graph, plug it in for x and y, solve for a. So we happen to have this other point here. The coordinates are 6, 2. So we can use this point, plug it in for x and y to solve for a. So 2 equals a times the square root of 6 minus 2. Now we do have this plus 0 on the outside, but I'm not going to write it because adding 0 doesn't change our number at all, so I'm just not going to write it. Then we have to solve for a. So we've got 2 equals a times the square root of 4. The square root of 4 is 2, so we have 2 equals 2a. And then if we divide both sides by 2, we'll get a equals 1. So now we know our h, we know our k, we know our a. So that means the equation of this graph is y equals a, which is 1, times the square root of x minus h, which in this case is 2, and then plus k, but our k is 0. So that is the equation of that graph there. Let's do one more example. So here's our general form here. The first thing we want to find is our hk. That's our starting point. So here's where our graph starts. The coordinates to this are 0, negative 3. So let's plug it into our equation. Y equals a times the square root of x minus 0. And then we have plus k. Our k is -3, so that's -3. I'm going to clean this up a little bit. X minus 0 is just x. So really what we have is y equals a times the square root of x minus 3. Let's find our other point on the graph. So our other point has coordinates 4, -1. Let's plug in our values here. So our y value is -1 equals a times the square root of 4 minus 3. Let's try and get a by itself. The square root of 4 is 2, so -1 equals 2a minus 3. If we add 3 to both sides, we'll get 2 equals 2a. And again, our a equals 1. I could have written 1 out in front there. It's not wrong, but 1 times the square root of x minus 2 is just the square root of x minus 2. So that's why I didn't write 1 in my answer there. And I'm not going to over here either. So our final answer, so the equation to this graph is y equals the square root of x minus 3. So that's our equation. Alright, that is it for our video today. I will see you next time in 7-7.